She only wanted to earn an honest living, caring for children, bringing warmth into a home that wasn't her own. But from the moment she walked through the front door, whispers followed. Laughter that cut deeper than knives. To them, she was just the help, someone unworthy of respect. What they didn't know was that fate was about to test them all, and when their child's life hung by a thread, the very woman they mocked became their only chance. So, how did it all unfold? Her name was Maya, a quiet young woman who carried the weight of her family's hopes on her shoulders. She worked hard, never asking for much, always giving more than she received. Babysitting wasn't glamorous, but it was steady. And for Maya, it was a chance to put food on the table and help her younger brother stay in school. Each morning, she walked through the gates of a wealthy neighborhood where the lawns looked like magazine covers and the houses stretched taller than anything she had ever imagined owning. To her, it felt like stepping into another world, a world where money seemed endless, but kindness was scarce. The family she worked for had everything: status, luxury, and the kind of confidence that came from never knowing struggle. Yet when they looked at Maya, they didn't see her heart, her sacrifice, or her quiet determination. They saw only what they wanted to see: someone beneath them, someone disposable. Still, Maya swallowed the sharp words, the sideways glances, the laughter whispered when they thought she couldn't hear. She told herself she was strong enough to endure it, that she just needed the paycheck. But deep down, she wondered how much could one person take before breaking. What Maya didn't know was that soon life would place her in a moment of unthinkable choice. And in that moment, the very people who dismissed her would learn just how wrong they had been. At first, Maya tried to keep her head down. She told herself the little comments didn't matter, that if she worked hard enough, maybe the family would eventually see her worth. But the more she showed up, the bolder their cruelty became. It started with the mother, a woman who never said Maya's name, but instead referred to her as the babysitter, as though giving her identity would make her too human. At the dinner table, she would correct Maya's every move in front of the children, her voice dripping with disapproval. The father laughed at jokes that reduced her to a stereotype, never once considering how each word cut like glass. Even the children, innocent at first, began to mimic the parents' tone, rolling their eyes, calling her slow, sometimes mocking the way she spoke. For Maya, it was like being erased piece by piece, her dignity chipped away in the very house she had promised to protect. But what burned most wasn't the words. It was the stares. When guests arrived, they looked at her as if she didn't belong, as if her very presence disturbed the perfect image of their polished home. She felt invisible and exposed all at once. Every smile she forced, every insult she swallowed, weighed on her like an anchor. Still, Maya endured. She told herself she wasn't there for approval, she was there for survival. Yet inside, the tension grew. Each day felt heavier, each hour a battle. And then came the moment that shattered the fragile balance. It was late one afternoon, the sun casting long shadows across the yard. The children had been playing outside when laughter suddenly turned into screams. Maya rushed out and saw chaos. The youngest child had wandered too close to the edge of the pool. In seconds, what had been playful splashing became a frantic struggle for air. Maya froze for only a heartbeat. The parents? They were nowhere in sight. The other children screamed, helpless. And in that instant, every cruel word, every belittling laugh vanished from her mind. All that mattered was the child. Slipping under the water, fighting for breath, her heart pounded as she lunged forward. The screams pierced her ears, but she moved on instinct. The world slowed, every second stretching into eternity as she dove. Into the pool. Cold water swallowed her whole, dragging her down into panic, but her grip was firm, her determination unshaken. When she broke the surface, the child was limp in her arms. The screams grew louder. Time seemed to stop. Maya gasped for air, holding on tight, praying the small body would fight its way back. But would it? And what would happen when the family realized that the same woman they mocked, ignored, and humiliated had just placed her own life on the line for theirs? Maya's arms trembled as she dragged the child onto the grass, her own chest heaving, lungs burning from the water she had swallowed. The child lay still, eyes closed, skin pale. Panic surged through her like fire. She pressed her ear to the tiny chest. Silence. For one terrifying second, the world felt like it was collapsing. She began compressions, her hands shaking but steady. "Breathe," she whispered desperately, though no one was listening. The siblings stood frozen, crying out for their parents. And then, the door slammed open. The family rushed out, eyes wide, not with gratitude, but suspicion. "What did you do?" the mother shrieked, her voice sharp as glass. She didn't see Maya's drenched clothes, her trembling body, or the desperate rhythm of her hands on her child's chest. All she saw was the babysitter, a black woman hovering over her lifeless child. Accusations flew like knives. "Get away from him!" the father barked, pulling Maya back as though she were the danger. For a moment she felt powerless, shoved aside while the parents screamed for help. Her heart cracked, not because of the insults, not because of the rejection, but because every second wasted could mean the child's last. Maya's voice cut through the chaos. "He needs air, now!" Her words were raw, urgent, impossible to ignore. And then a faint cough, a small chest rising, water spilling out. Life flickered back into the child's body. The world froze. Relief, disbelief, and something else, shame, spread across the parents' faces. Maya knelt there soaked, exhausted but unbroken. She had given everything in the moment that mattered most. And yet, even as the child's cries filled the air, a single question lingered in Maya's heart. Would they finally see her worth, or would they still see only the color of her skin? The child was safe. His tiny sobs echoed through the backyard, proof that Maya's courage had pulled him back from the edge. The family stood frozen, their wealth, their pride, their superiority. Suddenly, meaningless in the face of what had just happened. They couldn't deny the truth. The woman they mocked, belittled, and dismissed had just saved the most precious life they had. But for Maya, there was no triumph, only exhaustion. She sat on the grass, drenched and trembling, her heart pounding with more than just adrenaline. She knew this moment wouldn't erase the words she had endured, the stares, the cruelty. It wouldn't change the fact that in their eyes, her skin had always spoken louder than her soul, and yet she had acted anyway. Not for gratitude, not for recognition, but because doing what was right was bigger than the hatred she faced. That was her strength. That was her dignity. The parents, unable to speak, offered weak words of thanks, words that felt too small, too late. Their silence afterward said even more. Shame lingered in the air, but would it turn into change or fade like smoke once the danger had passed? Maya stood and walked away that evening, her head unbowed. She carried the memory of the child's heartbeat against her ear, proof that her worth could never be measured by the prejudice of others, and so the question remains, not just for that family, but for all of us. How many more Mayas must endure? Silence, suspicion, and scorn before we see their humanity first? Because in the end, racism doesn't just wound the victim, it wounds us all.